Alright, it begins. The Gathering. That's a Highlander reference, but I always use it when I play Final Fantasy, or I used to use it in class. When I used to play multiple Final Fantasies, and the Gathering was always a gathering of the best Final Fantasy games all played together. I only say it now because I have no idea if in 2026 I'm going to continue another Final Fantasy game directly after this one. Usually, the gathering usually means when I play Final Fantasy games, it's just something I do. It's like it usually means I play another Final Fantasy game back to back with this one, but I doubt it will be the case. I'm much older now, so it's probably not going to happen. But it's just something I used to like to say because I used to play the best Final Fantasies back to back. Final Fantasy 6, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy. Um, Even though a lot of people give shit on Final Fantasy 8, I used to play that as well. I considered it to be a very unique Final Fantasy game that's different from the rest. And then Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy, um, Final Fantasy 12, which also introduced a lot of replication systems with regards to turn-based, that you can actually do certain actions that in combat when you're running around, and they will automatic your secondary characters will automatically do it based on the setup you have. So out of all the Final Fantasies, it first introduced that type of mechanics, so I have to give props and respect for that. And then directly after that, it would usually be Final Fantasy 15 and then the new Final Fantasy. But that's how, out of most important, like if I was to classify the most important back to back, it will always be Final Fantasy 6, it will always be Final Fantasy 7, it will always be Final Fantasy 10, it will always be Final Fantasy 12, which was my own personal liking of their mechanical system. It will always be Final Fantasy 15, and it will always be Final Fantasy um, uh, 17. I mean, not 17, 16. But then it's a toss-up between 16 and 17. But the truth is this. Most recently, I don't like 16 and 17, but it used to always be just 5 without 16 and 17. It used to always be Final Fantasy 6, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 9, not 8, Final Fantasy 10, and Final Fantasy 12. And then in recent years, I came to love Final Fantasy 8 as well, so I threw that in there with Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 16, and 17. And that's how that went. But if you really want the true down and dirty honest answer, there's only really, out of every Final Fantasies, there are only really 5 Final Fantasies that are legendary and will always be in the top 5 no matter what. And that will always be 6, that will always be 7, that will always be 10. 9 might be a contender, and it will always be 15. And like I said, 9 is a contender with that of 16 and 17. So you could substitute 9 with 16 and 17. Whichever is a toss-up. But the standard 4 has always been 6, 7, 9, and 15. Those are the most legendary Final Fantasy games, because they really, not that 15 did anything super special, but 15 just basically took everything from Final Fantasy Online, Final Fantasy 14, 13, and so on, and made it better. Whatever they failed in Final Fantasy 13 and 14, they succeeded in 15. So those are the top 4 Final Fantasy games of all time, no matter what. Like if Final Fantasy was to become a television series, and they didn't want to make Final Fantasy VII the most popular one, they would probably go for Final Fantasy VI. Like if they wanted to do something like Game of Thrones, but Final Fantasy Game of Thrones, it would probably be 6. Because 6 is the most successful out of the like classical swashbuckler type. Out of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6 is the most closest to swashbuckler type that has massive success than the other 5. And it's the reason why 7 became super important in the US. Its success in Japan and in the US skyrocketed 7 success and 8 success. So without 6, Final Fantasy would have took a long time to get out of Japan. It would have probably got out of Japan during Final Fantasy 9. That's when it would have probably left Japan. It would have taken them an additional 5 to 6 years for it to get out of Japan. So by the time, maybe not even, maybe when 8 came out, that's when it will probably get out of Japan, but it probably still wouldn't be popular. I would say probably by the time Final Fantasy 9 came out, that's when it would probably have been popular in the US. If there was no Final Fantasy 6. So the reason why Final Fantasy 6 is my number 1 Final Fantasy game, because it revolutionized the Final Fantasy genre. It made things better than the original first 4 games, and things slightly better than the 5th game. And it really is the reason why Final Fantasy had succeed and is still successful to this very day. Its music to me is still slightly better than Final Fantasy 7, with exception to 3 music soundtracks from 7. Every other music in 6 is better than that of 7, except for 3 soundtracks from 7. Maybe 4. But that's how good Final Fantasy 6 soundtrack is. Its orchestral soundtrack, to me, is on par with that of 7, and better in many respects than that of 7, except for 3 or 4 songs in 7. So if it really wasn't for Final Fantasy 7, there would be no incredibly popular Final Fantasy franchise that happened early in the past. It would have come much, much later. Maybe a good 10 years later success in the US. So that's it. I'm just getting into this. I'm going to play this. There's no option to increase difficulty. Final Fantasy games were always one type of difficulty, and then it increased as go along in the game. So this is the beginning of a very, very long playthrough. I'm probably not going to finish this game until February of 2026. That's how long this game is. It's a story-based game, and I believe there might be 7 or 8 playable characters. So you know how there's Tifa, Cloud, Barrett, Yuffie, Catsit, Vincent, Cid, 7 characters in Final Fantasy 7. Well, in Final Fantasy 6, because in Final Fantasy 7 there are 7 playable characters you could use, but in Final Fantasy 6 I believe there are a hell of a lot more than that. Let me see. Final Fantasy 6 characters. Playable Final Fantasy 6 characters. Okay, so the playable Final Fantasy 6 characters are Locke, Edgar, Terra, Sabine, Sin, Gao, Celeste, Steiner, Strago, and realm. So starting from the bottom again, that's realm, Strago, Stetzer, Celeste, Gao, Cian, Sabin, Edgar, Locke, Terra. So that's 10 characters. I'll say it again. This time their whole name. Terra Branford, Locke Cole, Edgar Figaro, Roni Figaro, Sabine Renee Figaro. As for Cian Garamundi, Gao, single name. That's the 6. 7 is Celeste Cherry. Stetzer Gabbiani is the 8th. Strago Magus is the 9th. And Realm Aroni is the 10th. Out of all these characters, the ones I've always liked more than anything have been Stetzer, Gabbiani, and of course Locke Cole. Those two were always my favorite. Not because Locke is the main guy that you follow around most of the times, but because Stetzer had the airship. So Stetzer is like to me, he's a cooler version than Sid. He's more pirate version than Sid. He's also a more handsome guy than Sid is. But he's not as grouchy and as expressive as Sid is. So that's his downfall. He seems to be a pretty face, and a pirate, but there's not a lot of character development in Stetzer that there is in Sid. So there's a total of 10 playable characters in Final Fantasy VI. That's a lot. That's more than that of Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 3, so on and so forth. So Final Fantasy 6 has 10 characters, which should tell you how long this game is going to be. If it has that many characters, and that many characters are present and you can fight with, it's that many stories that you will have to embark on. Side stories, some also main stories. So there are 10 different stories that you're going to be presented with in this game. And they're not short stories. Some are short, others are very long. So this is a very long game. So I have no intentions of rushing Final Fantasy VI. This, in my opinion, is an automatic top 10 game. Now, any game that's past the 9.5 marker or is at the 9.5 to 10 marker is a top 10 game. It's a 10 out of 10 game. Like if you're at 9.5, 9.6, 9.7, 9.8, and 9.9, if you are from 9.5 going up to 10, you are a top 10 game, or you're a 10 out of 10 game, in my opinion. Because those 5 points I knock it down from 10 to 5, those are just subjective points. Those could be just my personal opinions. That could be wrong. So, assessment wise, I believe that this could be a 10 out of 10 game. Simple. Does it hold up to this day? Yes, it does. As what it is, for its mechanics, for its classical gameplay. Is it following the same motif as today's standard? How can it? Because it's not made on today's engine and is not designed the way people design video games today. But it's the story. That's what you play Final Fantasy for. You don't play it for mechanics. You don't play for any other thing other than the story first. In this instance, only in this type of game instance, would I say story takes precedence over mechanics. Only in this instance. Because this is a story-based game. All story-based games, the story takes precedence over the mechanics. Like Dark Pictures Anthology games. Stories takes precedence over mechanics because it's all about the story and less about anything else. But mechanics on fighting and playing in the game with regards to doing things is also equally as important. So story-based games, to me, mechanics are on the same par as the story. But I don't need to go over the story and over the mechanics in this game because I already did it in the past. So if you're interested in buying this classical old school game, because it's an old school game, then definitely give it a try, because I guarantee you would not be disappointed in this at all. You might be playing an older game from back in the past, but the story is definitely not going to be disappointing. So unless you're the type that hates to read text, then you might not like this game. But then again, people who don't like to read, I never really pay attention to them. So who cares what they think? So I'm playing this. The music, the music in here is masterful. Like if you want to go on an epic adventure, a Conan adventure or Zelda adventure, or any type of mythological adventure, classical adventure, the music in Final Fantasy VI is just epic. It's just unique in its own existence. Like I see people try to emulate it so many times in other games using flutes, trombones, drum beats, and they just can't do it. They can't simulate the feeling that this game originally created. They just can't. It truly is. It truly is epic music. It's ta na 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da da dum dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 na na dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da da dum. Everything about this game, from its music to its atmosphere to the design of the game to the I can't really say this cinematics because this wasn't a time when 3D cinematics was a thing. But the imagination in this game is just something of its own time, but it still holds up because it allows you to use your imagination and see things how they would play out if they were in 3D. I also believe that da 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 originated in this game. I don't believe it was present in the Final Fantasy V. I could be wrong, but I believe it first originated in this game. Probably is another reason why Final Fantasy VII became so famous, because not only with regards to the characters, but with regards to the music that they use in this game, and they just enhanced it for the next game. Okay, so I'm stopping here. Um, since this is going to be a very long game, and all Final Fantasy stories are extremely long. I think the only games that are equally as long as this is Witcher 3 or Persona 5. These are like 40, 50, 60, 80-hour games. Like the main story of Final Fantasy 6, I believe, is anywhere from 40 to 45 uh, hours. Like if you speed run it, you could probably get it done in 30 hours or 25. But speed running it at 25 or 20 hours, probably 25, is still a long for just speed running it. So I'm not speed running this. So this is going to be like a 50-hour journey, which I'm going to spread load over for the next 3 months. So this is not going to be done until late January and probably early February. So this is going to be a very long one. So I'll take my time with this. And because why it's going to be probably like more than 40, 50, 60, almost up to 80 hours of playing this, maybe even longer, is because I'm going to be searching for relics and powerful weapons and other espers. I'm going to be doing everything in this game, not just playing the story. So it's going to be like 80, 90, 100 hours of this, just trying to get everything. So I have no intentions of finishing this in December or probably in January. This is going to take a good 3 months to beat, 3 or 4 months to beat. So I'm taking my time with it because it's going to take a very long time to beat. All Final Fantasy stories are long, and this is one of the greats. This is like the equivalent of Resident Evil 2 OG in the horror franchise, but this is in the fantasy franchise. So this will be equivalent of that. Very old school, very hard to get used to, but they seem to have configured it to the repixelated version, update it so it's easy to use with your analog controllers. Whereas in the old school, you had to press up, down, you had to do a whole lot of other mess. So it's good, and the music is still great. In fact, they've probably made it better as well, and things are much brighter. You can see it as well. But this isn't about evaluating the game. This is a 10 out of 10 game. By default, this is a 10 out of 10 game, and any game that goes over 9.5 to me is a 10 out of 10 game. From 9.5 to 10 is a 10 out of 10 game. I don't need it to be a full 10 for it to be a 10 out of 10. Once it get that A plus, in like school rules, like once you get the A plus, once you hit 95 and above, it's already 10 out of 10. So I don't like to go school rules, but I know this is not a, if you're doing it based on stars like you watch a movie, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star movie, I know this is not a 3-star movie. Like most standard movies, like The Last Jedi was a 2-star movie, and Predator Badlands that I just watched was like a 3-star movie. And something like The Lord of the Rings is anywhere from a 4-star for a 5-star movie. The first Lord of the Rings is 5 stars. The Two Towers was like a 2-star, and Return of the King was like a 4-star. So this is like me playing a Lord of the Rings game. It's not short. The lore is long. The characters are long. There's 10 total characters and 10 different stories in this game. So it's going to take a long time to get through every single character story. At the moment, I'm going through the Fabine and the Figaro brothers, the twin brothers. I'm going through their story. This is their story. The beginning of the story is Terra is knocked out. She regained consciousness. She has to know who she is, and in order for them to find out who she is, you get to go on a journey with both the brothers and with Locke. So we'll see their part of the story as I'm progressing towards the 25% marker. And thereafter their story is finished, you'll then get to Celeste's story and Locke's story. And when their story is finished, you get more into Terra's story, and then eventually Terra's story comes to fruition at the halfway point. And then you get into other characters you meet past the halfway point in the game, then you get into their story and stuff. And then meet side characters along the way, like Stetzer and Gao. And their stories is not that long, but they also have a voice in the story, and separate stories as well. You could call them side stories. And you have to get through their little dialogue and stuff. I believe out of all 10 of your characters, there's a total of 5 long stories for your 10 characters, and maybe about 5 like backstories or mini stories with regards to other characters as well, while you're going through the main story. Because the Locke and Celeste is a kind of a long story, and then Terra's a story throughout the game, main game, and the brothers are a story. So those are 3 different stories. And going towards the middle of the game, you get to see the Kefka and the bad guys, their side of the story, what they're trying to achieve, and then all the other side characters' stories. So there's a total like 5 main stories going on, and like 5 extra little mini stories in the background happening with side characters. So this is very, very long story. So that's it. The music is amazing. It's always been amazing, and every time you get to a new continent or a new location or a new mission, and when you fight new bosses, you get new music for new bosses, new music for being on new continents, new music for new achievements. So there's music for everything. So yeah, this is a great story. It sucks that it came out way, way, way back in the past, all the way in like the 80s and stuff, or should I say 80s, early 90s. Because Final Fantasy 6, 7 came out in mid 90s, I believe, and I believe this original one, Final Fantasy 6, came out in late 80s, early 90s. Its prototype came out in late 80s, but I believe the early 90s is when it was released. So it sucks that these great stories had come out way back in the past. If they were released now in this generation, in 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, it doesn't matter what new games are out now in this generation. What's now on Steam, what's now on Xbox, what's on PlayStation. If Final Fantasy VI was released in this day and age and nobody heard of it, and it was released today, and it wasn't released in the past, it would blow all those games out the water, period. It would have got 10 out of 10, 5 stars, rave reviews. You would see it all, Metacritics, all this, Crunchyroll, freaking Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb. It would have been 10 out of 10 easy. So I'm not worried about it, because it got that much high praise in the past, and it still exists to this very day. That's high up on the totem pole of one of the great fantasy games in video game history. If this set game was released in this day and age, with this day and age technology, and all these different intricate things you could do in sci-fi games, such as teleporting, transporting, switching characters in mid-battle, RTS, FPS actions, secret actions, sniping through walls and stuff, teleporting from here to here, healing people, unique character traits, accessibilities, everything that they did in Skyrim, it would blow all those things out of the water. It was released here and now today, in this day and age. Like his crossbow ability that he has, that you could lock on to all the enemies and shoot them all at once, it would be done in such a unique and wholesome way in this generation. It would be very different than just a one-shot thing coming from one direction towards all enemies. It'll be done in a more creative way, in a creative angle way. And the fact that you could choose with different type of arrows to use for different type of enemies, that will also be done in a different way. Kind of like the Evil Within, where he could choose his shock arrows and smoke arrows and freeze arrows. It's kind of like that. Like what you use in the bow in the Evil Within 2 is kind of like what Edgar is using. So that's it. That's it for this. It's like this game was ahead of its time, because that's only one thing that Edgar and then them and the rest of them have, including Terra. Eventually, as you build up and get more experience, you unlock more powers and stuff. So you could use a barrage of different attacks and different type of weapons, and you could go into different commands: defend, move forward, move backwards while you're in command, escape, run. This game was way ahead of its time. I believe it might have created the escape command that you run out of combat. It was the first introduction of running out of combat, running away from combat. So this game was way ahead of its time. Like it's outdated now based on its pixelation and its design, but it doesn't matter. Any game to me that was ahead of its time, that was a founding father of many things, especially in Final Fantasy. And I can't really call it a founding father because Final Fantasy 1 was the actually founding father. But basically this was kind of like the magnum opus. That's what this game is. This is the magnum opus of Final Fantasy. Like if you were to have a magnum opus, Final Fantasy 6 would be that magnum opus. And they simply elaborated on the magnum opus to magnum opus 2.0 in Final Fantasy 7 by making everything that looked flat 2D into 3D. But it was simply the same magnum opus. It's just an upgraded version of that magnum opus. So that's all. It's like comparing Fallout 1 to Fallout 4 or 3. There's no comparison. Fallout 3 will always be greater than Fallout 1. There's no comparison, you know? Just like Final Fantasy 6 cannot be compared to Final Fantasy 1 or 2 or 3. It's no comparison. It's simply miles ahead. If Final Fantasy 6 was a runner, it'd be at least 20 meters in front of Final Fantasy 1 before crossing the finish line, and maybe like 3 or 4 feet behind Final Fantasy 7 when Final Fantasy 7 crossed the finish line. So it would be neck and neck with Final Fantasy 7. Maybe not even 3 feet, 2 feet away from Final Fantasy 7. So they will both be in that race, and Final Fantasy 7 would slightly beat out Final Fantasy 6, simply based on the time that Final Fantasy 7 was released and the amount of things that Final Fantasy 7 brought to the table that they couldn't have done in Final Fantasy 6 because they did not have the technology. But they would have done it if they had it at the time, guaranteed. So Final Fantasy 7 simply wins by default because of the time it was released. But that's it. That's it for this. This is a long game. This is a crazy long game and bizarre story. So it's going to be take me a long time to beat. So that's it for right now.